Libido. How can women maybe use CBT to help them with that?
So if we look at the cognitions, what are my thoughts around it? Are there any patterns of thoughts that might be unhelpful? Then behaviours, maybe it's about not watching them eat the cornflakes in the morning.
Chore play is always good for a desire. You know, there's nothing sexier than watching you bend over that dishwasher, baby, and empty it for me without being asked.
Yeah. And can I just say that when my therapist would tell me about cognitive restructuring, I was thinking, fuck that. Did I believe the new thought when I changed it the first time? No. Did I believe it when I changed it the 10th time? No. But over time, I absolutely believed it.
So the tiredness and the irritability, how can CBT help that?
First of all, is sleep restriction therapy. There is no point in going to bed at 9 if you're not sleeping until 12, because you're actually increasing the amount of time that you're lying in bed awake. And then the other part is reducing naps.
Oh my goodness, I love a nap. Naps are my favourite thing to do.
I remember being on a plane with one of my children, a bit of turbulence, and my child turned to me and said, will we be okay?
Oh, Jesus.
And I said, what would make you think that we're not? And they said to me, oh, don't do CBT, just tell me we'll be fine. And I was like, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. We're going to be absolutely fine. So reassurance actually can maintain anxiety in children because it prevents the independent assessment of a situation.
Nicola, it's such a pleasure to have you in the pod.
It's so lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. And we are going to talk about all things CBT, which I probably need a bit of myself. I come in here like a thunderbolt with, you know, makeup half on, putting it on in the car on the way up and apologising for being a bit late. And I just think sometimes I need to go, ooh, and deep breath. But this isn't about me. This is about everyone else that we can help as well today. So what is CBT? And what are you going to do today to help everyone that's listening?
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
So CBT is a talking therapy that helps people to understand the connection between how they're thinking, how they're feeling, and how they act. So it is really about helping people to become more flexible in their thinking. So if you don't mind me using that example.
Yeah.
You came in, you were like talking about it there, like really stressed. I didn't even notice. But in your head, you were thinking, oh God, I'm late, I'm putting on my makeup. And that then has an impact on your stress levels, on how you feel, and then how you behave as well. Yeah. So a lot of the time we're on autopilot during the day. We're not pausing to think, what was I thinking there? How did I feel? What did I do? And that's what CBT does. It helps us to stop and pause and ask, is that true? Is that helpful? And it's, you know, it doesn't take that long to do it. So I would have done CBT myself, and I was a really anxious child, teenager, young adult. And before I did CBT, everything was a catastrophe. So everything that was about to happen was the worst case scenario. It was never going to turn out well. And it generally always turned out well or fine. But in my head, it was catastrophe, worst case scenario. And CBT did that for me. It helped me to stop, pause and ask, is that true? Is that helpful? And literally completely changed how I was, I would say who I was and how I behaved and my anxiety levels as well.
Okay. So you were a primary school teacher initially?
Yes. Yeah.
And is that what made you anxious?
Didn't help. Yeah, so I was a primary school teacher and, well, I would have been an anxious child and definitely as a teenager, really, really anxious. Probably the most anxious was when I was a teenager and then became a teacher, having never really dealt with that anxiety. And yeah, just that like desire and maybe need to be perfect and to do well as a teacher and to mind these children and to teach them well, and the pressure I would have put on myself. And yeah, I remember one day being in school, as a teacher now, and ringing my mother to collect me because I had such a pain in my chest. palpitations and called my mom to collect me, and she collected me and brought me to the doctor. I was like 24, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Still get your mom to collect you.
Oh, I know.
So she collected me and brought me to the GP, and he obviously checked me over and gave me this like little leaflet as I was walking out the door. And I thought, he's sending me to A&E. I'm having a heart attack. I knew it. And he said, you're not having a heart attack, but I think you might benefit from some CBT.
Okay.
And I went very skeptical now, I have to say. I was like, I don't need CBT. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yes, I do need to make some changes. And I'm so glad that I did. It really, really helped me.
And then as a result of that, then you became a CBT therapist.
I taught then for about maybe 15, 16 years. And just before I went back to college to do a master's in Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, I had this role of homeschool community liaison. I don't know, some people may not be familiar with that. It's like a support worker in a school that is DESH, so a designated disadvantaged area. And I was a support worker working with families, supporting a lot of parents. The whole premise of the role is that you will support the parents so that they have a positive experience of school, and then their children have a positive experience. And I just loved that role. Just loved supporting parents and being able to, go on a little home visit, have a cup of tea, have a chat. And I suppose, discovered that I had a real grow for it, a real love for listening to people and not really fixing or being in a position to fix, but just listening and just, that kind of feel good feeling.
Yeah.
So I decided then to go back and do a master's in CBT.
And is that like psychology or what is that?
No, it's quite specific. So
Okay.
It's cognitive behavioural therapy.
Okay.
So it was a 2-year master's just specifically in cognitive behavioural
Okay.
therapy. I just did a counselling skills kind of certificate before that, just to be sure, rather than embarking on this master's and then not being sure. So did my master's, and I actually remember the first day being in the college, and this lady came in and did the first lecture, and I actually had tears in my eyes. I was like, this is actually, do you ever just feel this is where I'm supposed to be?
Yeah.
And I had, done CBT. Even at that point, I was still doing some CBT. And it was actually my therapist said to me, I think you'd be great as a CBT therapist. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, most of the time you come into the sessions and you just talk to yourself and you tell yourself what to do. So, went back and did that. And absolutely.
And what do you see mainly in your practice then?
So it varies. CBT is, I suppose, can be used for lots of different conditions. We would look at people with anxiety, people with low mood, people with health anxiety, specific anxieties, ADHD. I would see a lot of women who are seeking support around that stage of life, perimenopause, menopause. A lot of parenting support. So I would do a lot of parent-led CBT, which is where I work with the parent to give them strategies that they can use then with their children.
Let's talk about the perimenopause and menopause, because you did get in touch with me after listening to the podcast that I did with Deirdre Lundy, who spoke about the importance of CBT.
Yes.
When a woman is going through perimenopause and menopause, because it can really help with symptomatic control, with making them feel better about themselves. So talk me through how a woman can help herself.
So I suppose, first of all, to say that CBT is the real, the gold standard. It's the gold treatment. The National Institute for Healthcare and Excellence recommend CBT along with HRT. But in some cases, if HRT isn't desired or it mightn't be appropriate, or then CBT can really help with the emotional and the cognitive symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. So when somebody comes to me, it's always really individual. It's how it's impacting them. So let's just say it might be brain fog, which would be one of the most frustrating symptoms of perimenopause at times. So we would look at how it's impacting them. And then I think the first place we start is holding space. My supervisor used to talk to me about holding space before, because I was a bit of a, in that movie Frozen, that fixer-upper. I'd be like, oh, this client, and let's go in there with the solution. But actually the place we start is always that holding space. so that the woman has a space to go without judgment to talk about how things are impacting her, maybe how shit it is or how it's frustrating her. So that's number one. And then we look at strengthening the parts of the brain that might be struggling a little bit because of that fluctuation in estrogen. So we know that estrogen, our old friend, I mean, if I had known how important she was at the time, I would have appreciated her more.
We just don't.
In my 20s and 30s.
I say that to women all the time. Literally, estrogen is what gives us life.
Everything.
You know, and then as it declines, just things go tits up. But there's solutions.
Loads of them.
There's loads of solutions.
I just wanted to take a moment for estrogen and how great it is, okay?
Yeah, I don't think, we just don't give it the love that we should.
Yeah, so we just did there, Laura, so it's fine.
Okay.
So
we've held space for estrogen.
So important.
I love it.
Just do it in your 20s and 30s if you're listening and you're in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah, you bitches who are in their 20s and 30s who have plenty of it, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, the fluctuation in estrogen has a huge impact on our brains, and in particular, the cortex, the thinking part of the brain. And our thinking part of the brain is where we problem solve, we plan, we prioritize, we emotionally regulate, everything. It literally does everything for us. So estrogen is really important for that prefrontal cortex, that thinking part of the brain. And because it's fluctuating, the brain fog happens. There's lots of things that we can do to strengthen the prefrontal cortex. CBT is one of them. I know I'm biased, but it actually does.
I want to hear about this because this is really important that women understand that they can do this themselves.
Yes.
Okay, because the brain fog is a huge issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's numerous things we can do. I'll just mention some of them first of all, and then I'll talk about the CBT specific ones. So aerobic exercise, you'll love this. Aerobic exercise, yes, the brisk walk, the swim, all of that spreads that BDNF, which is that protein, which is like Miracle Grow. So if you imagine your lawn is your prefrontal cortex is like the lawn, and you spread the BDNF, which is your Miracle Grow. Every time you go for a walk, you spread a little bit of that protein in your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that is declining to some degree because of that lack of estrogen.
So we have our real clip now. I didn't know it.
Miracle Grow.
I'm gonna steal that, right?
Yeah,
steal that.
No problem. So that's aerobic exercise. Any kind of challenge for the brain, like brain challenges, Wordle, Nerdle, Sudoku, all of those.
What about Duolingo, learning a new language?
Absolutely.
I'm doing that. I'm doing like streaks with my boys.
Love it.
Before I went to Japan, I was doing it in Japanese. Christ, Japanese is a bloody hard language to learn. I'm now doing Italian. But it's great. And if you have kids off age, they love the streaks, so you can have friend streaks and stuff.
Every time you do your Japanese or Italian, you are spreading the Miracle Grow.
Okay.
So any kind of brain challenges, because that activates the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, and any kind of puzzle, even if it is like jigsaws so it doesn't have to be on your phone.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And actually, you know the way they say as well, to help keep your mind active as you get older and reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia, is to learn a new language.
Yes.
And because literally your brain has to really think hard.
Yeah, and what it's doing is it's forming new pathways. So new roads are forming in your brain. Whereas if you don't learn the language, the grass starts growing down the middle of the road. It's like a country lane. So the more you activate that thinking part of the brain, the stronger it is. It's like you go to the gym and you do your bicep curls. And that muscle then over time becomes stronger and stronger. Exact same as the brain. The brain is a muscle. The more we use it, the more you do Sudoku, the more you learn Italian, the more you do the Wordle in the morning or whenever, that's when I do mine, the more you strengthen that muscle in the brain.
Okay.
So CBT specific techniques that you would use then would be thought reframing or restructuring, which is listening out for some of those unhelpful thoughts that we might have around this stage as well. I can't cope. My favourite personal one being, how am I going to do 15 years of these feelings or symptoms? And those are automatic thoughts. So we can't control having the thought. The thought happens automatically. You can't stop the thought from occurring. What you can do is restructure it to create a new pathway in the brain that is more helpful. So I restructure my thought around how am I going to do 10, 15 years of these symptoms to something like, I can cope. I have lots of strategies that I can use, and already I feel better. And I know it sounds really simplistic, doesn't it? But changing your thought to something more realistic, more self-compassionate, more reaffirming is far more beneficial to us than believing the alternative, the original thought.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
So give me some more examples.
Okay, so another one would be to not fuse with the thought. We have a tendency to attach to the thought. So we have the thought, and because we've probably learned that our brains are so intelligent and, look at all they can do, we believe what we think. But we don't have to believe everything we think. So I name it. So first of all, I notice it. I have to become aware that I'm having the thought. Then name it. And then change it to something more realistic. Not fuse with the original thought. I don't have to believe it. Sometimes I'll say it in a silly voice. I'll say, there's that thought again that I'm not going to be able for perimenopause. So it kind of minimizes it. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It just takes away some of the power. And then I'll write it down, because writing it gets it out of my head that is probably a bit full. And then I'll refocus on a different task. And doing all those things can be really helpful to not fuse to every thought that we believe.
And do you have a little notebook that you write every thought down in, or just write it on scraps of paper? Because that's where I would be terrible at. I have refill pads all over the house, and I can't find the last one I wrote in. No, I don't journal, and I don't write down, but I'm talking about like meeting notes and things like that. So I'd be terrible with that.
So I'm great to tell clients, get yourself a journal. And, lots of people would say, I love buying a new journal. And so do I, but I have like 10 of them around the place.
Yeah.
So if it's a really stuck thought, if it's a really sticky thought, I will write it down, not necessarily in an actual journal, but I know lots of people have journals. So that's exactly where you could write it. Okay. So I'd just be lying if I said I had one.
Yeah. Okay. So you can write it anywhere, and once it's out of your head and on a sheet of paper, it's almost like,
I'm not gone. It's not in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not attached to it. That's a good way of thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
I've about 20,000 thoughts to write down now on sheets of paper all over the house.
And the thing is, we have tens of thousands of thoughts every day. We don't have to, they're mental events. They're not necessarily true. We don't have to believe all of them. So let's just say I'm walking down the street and there is somebody fixing the water pipe and they're just leaning over. And my thought is, I could kick them now and they'd fall in. Just because I think that. I've never done this. I always use that example, but
that's almost like an OCD intrusive thought, isn't it?
Yeah. But everybody has those thoughts, don't they? Everybody has
the kind of thoughts I have when I'm walking down the street. But it is true. You can have these, even, if you're holding a new baby and you go, I could drop this baby on its head.
Yeah.
And then you think, Jesus, could I drop this baby on its head?
And do you know that if you have intrusive thoughts like that, which a lot of people do, they are intrusive because they are so far removed from the person that you are. So I would never kick somebody as they're working down the manhole.
Yeah.
And that is really far removed from the kind of person that I am.
Yeah.
So you would hold the baby and you would be really careful holding the baby. But it intrudes into our brain because it is so far removed from who we are.
The brain's nuts, isn't it? As in
Crazy.
The brain, the way we can think of these things. We've talked about holding space. We've talked about noticing and then writing it down. What are the other ways we can cope?
Yeah, so for brain fog, the emotions can become a little bit more irritable because of the prefrontal cortex being a little bit...
Sorry, you're being funny. We become loads irritable.
Trying to be nice about
I
it.
often talk about, your husband's just breathing beside you and you want to deck him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of irritable. Chewing their cornflakes.
No.
Like a horse. Yeah, I know.
I sit at the island now. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
So strange, isn't it? Anyway, do proceed.
Sorry. So the emotions can also have an impact on that brain fog. When we are thinking a particular way, let's just say I'm in a meeting and I'm about to make a point in the meeting, and then I get a thought, oh, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to remember what I'm about to say because of this brain fog. And then we worry and the feelings that come with it. So we would look at using emotional regulation techniques to help with that brain fog as well. So how do you regulate? Like, what is it that everybody does to regulate? Is it that you pace yourself? Is it that you use some kind of breathing technique? Is it that you use a grounding technique? Because all of that forms part of CBT as well. And one of the absolutely brilliant ways of developing that part of the brain, especially around brain fog, is meditation and mindfulness. And I have to be honest and say that when I did CBT, and my therapist would say to me, and are you doing the meditation? And I was like, the nodding dog. Absolutely. Yes. So I wasn't really a big fan of it, but the research that backs it up is incredible for strengthening that muscle tone of the prefrontal cortex as well, which really helps with the brain fog. Okay. The other thing that I'll mention is externalizing structure. And this is something else that we might use with ADHD. And this is, if my brain is foggy, then I can't see up there. Things are actually foggy. So I need to write things down. And whether that is your slips of paper or my Post-its or the lists or the timer or the alarm, something that will externally support you during those moments of forgetfulness or not being clear on something.
Okay. So it's finding the solution for yourself, really. Yeah?
It is really individual.
Yeah. But even the way it can take time to write the stuff down. So you're almost like, I don't have time to write the stuff down, and then you forget it. Sometimes people are stuck in a vicious circle.
Mm-hmm. So we'd always look at the benefits. What would be the benefit? Imagine you were writing this stuff down. How would it impact you? So let's just say, for example, Monday mornings could be quite stressful for me. I said this to you on the phone the other day, that Sunday evening is my 15 minutes and I throw off the emails, write in what I'm going to do for, the week for the most part. And really, I suppose, externalize what's in my head. But if I don't do that on Sunday evening, then Monday morning is chaotic. And Sunday night, that sleep isn't as good.
Because your brain is busy thinking about all the things that you have to do.
And how will I remember it?
And do you write things down like make the kids' lunches and those simple tasks? Or is it just the big things?
I would plan out my days. But yeah, some of the things are just automatic at this stage, Laura.
Yeah.
So not all of them. But I would put things like go for a walk, call this person. Even if I'm like, oh yeah, I'll remember that. What's the benefit? And it's to, really focus on the why behind it.
I was good at writing things down there for a while, and I did find it good. I particularly enjoy putting a line through the things that I've done.
Yes.
Or writing a tick beside it. I have got out of the habit of it because things have been so busy. That seems ridiculous, and as a result my mind's fried.
Yeah, that's the paradox of it, and that's what we call it. When we are busy, we are less likely to make the list, to go for the walk, to do the things that we probably need to do more than when we're quieter.
Okay.
And the little ticks that we do actually give us a little hit of dopamine. And that's really important for that part of the brain as well.
So we've discussed brain fog. The other symptoms of menopause, of which there are 64,000.
Yes.
We probably won't get through all 64,000 today.
Doubt it.
But let's think of some of the other things. So the tiredness and the irritability. How can CBT help that?
So CBT for the tiredness, if we're looking at sleep, let's look at sleep first of all. We would look at certain CBT techniques that you can use for sleep. The first one sounds like some kind of torture. It is sleep restriction therapy, which is like forcing you to stay awake, but it's not really. It's what time do you go to bed at? Or what time do you fall asleep at? There is no point in going to bed at 9 if you're not sleeping until 12, because you're actually increasing the amount of time that you're lying in bed awake. You're actually better off going to bed later and bringing it back by maybe 15 minutes or a half an hour every couple of nights. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just wanted to ask you about that because you know the way people say like, oh, you should go to bed and just rest and unwind and maybe, is that part of resting in bed not a good idea? And calming the mind and going to bed, even if you're not sleeping, you're still calm and relaxed?
If you are struggling to sleep, if you're finding it challenging to fall asleep,
Okay.
we do look at reducing the amount of time in bed awake.
Okay.
Because if you're going to bed and you're resting or you're maybe reading or meditating, then that's different. But if you're lying there trying to sleep and not sleeping, then we do look at reducing that and bringing it back a little bit.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, and then the other part to sleep restriction is reducing naps. So, and I love a nap.
Oh my goodness, I love a nap. Naps are my favourite thing to do.
Yeah, me too.
Just on the couch for 15 minutes and then you wake up. Oh no, I love it. So I love to nap on the couch in the kitchen, and I can actually, it's the only time I can do it. I can fall asleep to the sound of other people pottering. I almost love it.
Oh, lovely.
And then I wake up and I feel like even the sound of the kids talking or people like, you know, emptying the dishwasher or something like that. I can do that, but if I'm in bed, I couldn't go to sleep with noise around me. So mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like my brain knows that it's only a little nap, but I just wake up so refreshed from a nap. I'm like a little baby.
Yeah, so the short nap is really good. But sometimes when we miss out on sleep at nighttime, and maybe that's because we're experiencing, you know, hot flush or we're finding it hard to sleep, then we will make up for the time that we've lost out during the night, the next day. But that actually has an impact the next night then. So if I lose out on 2 hours sleep or miss out on 2 hours sleep, and then I go for a nap of 2 hours, it'll impact the next night's sleep.
But if you just go for a little 15-minute power
Perfect.
nap. Okay.
20 minutes, my favourite. Yeah.
Okay.
I have this like set timer on my phone that I set for the 20-minute nap. But if you're struggling to sleep, then it's a good idea to reduce those naps completely just while you're trying to get the sleep back.
Okay.
So that's the first place we would start. And then we would look at behaviours, sleep behaviours, the usual, the phone, the screen, you know, maybe going for the run late at night, not relaxing, things like temperature of the room, but mainly our own behaviours before sleep. What am I doing to let my body know that melatonin needs to be released now? It's time for bed.
Okay.
Those are the behaviours. And then we would look at the cognitive aspects. I am never going to sleep tonight. It's like you program your brain. So when we tell ourselves, oh, I'm never going to sleep tonight, I really need to sleep tonight, oh, I have that big thing in the morning, then your brain is like, oh, are we not?
Yeah.
Great. So we're not sleeping tonight, Laura. Great.
Yeah.
I'll keep you awake, no problem.
Yeah.
So that is something we look at as well. So we would bring in that thought reframing, which is where we tell ourselves we're going to have the best night's sleep. And I know it sounds a little, oh, is that really going to work? But over time, when we prepare our brain for sleep through thinking that we're going to sleep well and also those behaviours, it does have an impact. So changing those thoughts.
That sounds like something that people can actually just take away then. Okay.
Yeah.
So then moving on to say hot flashes. Can CBD help with hot flashes?
Actually can. It's not going to stop them happening.
Yeah.
But Professor Myra Hunter did a study on this in 2019, and the study was specifically for the vasomotor symptoms, so hot flashes, and the group that did the study, there was a 50% reduction after 6 weeks in the distress. So it's not changing the actual hot flash or hot flush. It's actually changing our response to it. So using strategies. What's the first thing that happens? Like when a person has a hot flash, they'll say, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
People will see me. I'll go all red, or people are going to see that I'm sweating, or I'll never cope with this. And all of those thoughts release more adrenaline, more cortisol, make you feel hotter. And I'm not blaming people for that, but that's the impact of those thoughts on the nervous system as well.
I'll never forget a lady I worked with in the pharmacy. Oh my goodness, she was so funny. She'd be getting one, she'd be there doing the blister packing, because we did loads of blister packs for nursing homes. And she'd be there, oh Jesus, it's coming. Oh fuck, hold me back. Oh, and it's coming up my back, and and we, and it was like this, exorcism almost coming,
Yes.
but she was very, very panicked at it. And like we were laughing because it was also funny to watch. That sounds terrible, but she was kind of laughing too. But when you're saying that about the fact that when you're telling yourself this is going to be awful, I'm panicked, this is a desperate thing to happen to me, I can see how that would literally just rose all our cortisol levels.
Yes.
When we're watching her, that kind of way.
Yeah, you actually become hotter, and your system, believes what you tell it. So your nervous system then is bracing itself for a bear attacking it, but it's a hot flush. And I'm not minimizing it, but that's what's about to happen. So obviously we're going to start by trying to change that thought to, okay, I'm going to breathe through this. This is something I've experienced before and I've been fine.
It's totally normal. It's just part of my body's changing ways. And okay.
Yeah. And that can be helpful, but also...
I'm sure there's some women listening to this going,
I know.
Fuck that, Nicola.
Absolutely. And can I just say that when my therapist would tell me about cognitive restructuring, I was thinking, fuck that.
Yeah.
What? You think after 25 years of thinking this way, but I've lived this, haven't had the hot flush yet, but I've lived it. I've had thoughts that have caused me to end up at the doctor's with a pain in my chest with such panic that I thought I was having a heart attack. And did I believe the new thought when I changed it the first time? No. Did I believe it when I changed it the 10th time? No. But over time, I absolutely believed it. So you might be standing there and you might be experiencing that feeling or that symptom and thinking, I'm going to change this and it's going to help me. But the studies show it will. And over time.
So it's like that neuroplasticity,
It is neuroplasticity, yeah. So we build a new pathway in the brain, a new thought, an alternative. And we're not going from the negative thought, oh my God, I'm never going to cope, to I'm going to sail through this. So it's not moving to the positive. It's moving to something more realistic, moving to something more helpful. I always use the phrase, go from negative to helpful, because it's an unhelpful thought to be thinking, I'm never going to cope with this. What am I going to do? Tell yourself, I'm going to be okay during this. I've had this before. What helps me? What do I need now? And that will be more helpful than the panic thought, even if the panic thought comes first.
Okay.
To restructure it and change it.
So that's the hot flashes. So joint pain, can we cognitive behavioural therapy out of that?
Or can use CBT for pain management as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of trials and studies on this as well. And again, it's not changing the pain. It's changing our response and our thinking around the pain. If you were to put your hand out, Laura, and you were to focus on your hand and you only focused on that for 5 minutes, you would start to really, really feel the weight of it. You'd start to feel different, like pulsing sensations.
Already.
Yeah, tingling. So when we focus on something, now this isn't to say that somebody who has joint pain has just got the pain because they're focusing on it. Absolutely not. No. But if we can redirect our attention to something else, it can be helpful. We have to look at, I suppose, the 4 different aspects of CBT are the cognitive. How am I thinking about this pain? The behaviours. So what things help me? So, my mother is in her 70s and she is like hard worker, and she has pain in her wrist, arthritis in her wrist, and it's really like severe and bothering her. And she will go out and she will, cut the hedge or something, and then come in and be like, oh, it's really sore. And we're like, yeah, did you need to do 3 hours of it? Oh, maybe not. So what are the behaviours that I have that help me? So maybe I need to reduce some of the things, and then bringing in that cognitive part. Am I thinking, so if I have knee pain, and I'm going out and I'm making myself continue with the 5K run. Now, I'm not a PT or, doctor, but if I'm continuing to do the same exercise, but it's affecting the pain, then we might look at what are those thoughts that you have to do this. Are we able to be flexible with that exercise? Maybe we need to change some of those behaviors around it. So I think it's really about focusing on what you can control. There are things that we can control. We can control having the thought, but maybe changing the thought to something more helpful. Maybe I need to put my feet up for a week and rest and change the guilty thoughts that might come, or the critical thoughts that come when I rested for a week or something.
But what about if they do have this arthritic pain and it is there all the time? Would it not be exhausting for them to be trying to be thinking about something else all the time to redirect that thought?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So if it's there, we're looking at changing the thoughts to something, not focusing our attention on something else. So we're not redirecting our attention all the time, because you can't distract your way away from pain all the time. But we might focus on my thoughts around coping with the pain. I'll never stick this. How am I going to put up with this? Changing those thoughts. What do I need now? What would be helpful for me? Maybe I need to visit my GP. Maybe I have a thought that is unhelpful. Oh, I can't go to the GP again. God, sure, I went to them last week. They're the kind of thoughts that we're listening out for that might be unhelpful. And then looking at some of those behaviours as well. Maybe some of the behaviours, maybe I need to rest more. Maybe I need to be compassionate with myself. So lots of those can be helpful as well.
Okay. Libido does take a knock.
Yes.
Now there's lots of things. So there's with libido, it can be purely to do with you're really tired and fatigued and your desire is gone, and but it can also be to do with the physical symptoms such as like dry vagina and all of those kinds of things. But just in terms of libido in and of itself, how can women maybe use CBT to help them with that?
So again, it's looking at that framework around our thoughts, our behaviours, our emotions and our physical sensations. So if we look at the cognitions, what are my thoughts around it? Are they helpful? Are there any patterns of thoughts that might be unhelpful? Can I look at changing or reframing them in a particular way? Then behaviours, maybe it's about not watching them eat the cornflakes in the morning. Maybe I can change some of those behaviours.
I think chore play is always good for a desire. Getting a bit of chore play. There's nothing sexier than watching you bend over that dishwasher, baby, and empty it for me without being asked.
Yeah. Some behavioural change. Yeah, we just look for patterns in behaviour and thoughts that might be individual to the person. And what I'm really listening for when a person comes into the therapeutic space with something like libido or relationships or how they're feeling about it, especially at this time of their life, is what are their thoughts? And a lot of their thoughts are what they're actually saying. So it might be, oh my God, my skin is crawling at the thoughts of it. Oh my God, I can't be arsed. I'm too tired. I have a pain in my knee. I just, I just have no interest, no desire. So we're going to explore that then. Obviously, I said it at the beginning, and I really want to focus on that it is about that space without judgment. Sometimes talking about it and hearing, like I find at the beginning I have to spend a bit more time saying, oh, did you hear what you said there? And the person will say, oh, yes, I did. Or I'll say it for them. But then over time, maybe they hear it themselves. So if we're saying, oh, my skin crawls at the thoughts of it, or, oh, I can't be arsed, or I'm too tired, it's not to say that isn't true, but is it helpful? And then what can we do about it? Is there a different thought that might be more helpful that you could change it to? Could you reframe it in some way? And then I suppose it's around the behaviours. You mentioned there about the chore play. I've never heard of that, Laura. That's one I'm taking back to Limerick with me.
You can no problem. Spread the word in Limerick. Those Limerick women need that. Everyone needs a bit of chore play.
So what are the connection points during the day? we know, and it's not to blame women or anything like that, or the people who are experiencing perimenopause, but we might be feeling more irritable. And do I need more sleep? Do I need to mind myself? Do I need to take more time for myself during this time now?
And I think that's the issue too, because we do hear about it being the sandwich generation. We may be raising kids, whether they be younger or teenagers. We may have older parents that we're trying to look after and mind. We're trying to check in with everybody. We've got busy jobs. We're also supposed to be, cooking amazing dinners for everyone. And, everyone's supposed to be living healthy, getting our exercise in, getting our 8 hours sleep, and also being an amazing partner. Like, that's fucking exhausting.
Yeah.
So
exhausting. I sighed when you were talking because I was like, yes,
we are exhausted just to try and kind of keep up with life, I suppose. And I suppose it's about taking things back a bit and living that bit more slow.
Absolutely. I think more so than ever, if I can speak, like just personally, because I've had so many times in my life that have been so busy and so stressful, like lots of people, like everybody, that I'm just at the stage now where I'm like, does that suit me? How does that fit into my day? Can I actually do that this week? That's where my Sunday nights are about, Laura. Because I've had so many times where I have, been at the doctor or, been sick or been under the weather or not been able to do something and thought, I've missed that now because I have just run myself into the ground. And I think it is more important than ever during those years of perimenopause. And I know it's easier said than done, but even if you can take one thing from the table, one thing that maybe doesn't need to be there that week, and that can have such a domino effect. Do I need to do that? Will that have an impact? And then coming back to the libido thing, what are the behaviours? What are the behaviours that I have control over? What are the ones that are going to be helpful? And also, connection is so important, isn't it? That we're able to talk to our partners about how we're feeling, and that if we have to mention the 64,000 symptoms of it, then we do that every day. And that we are able to talk about it with our partner. And I think that can be so important as well, that we don't feel like we can talk about it, that we create a space where we can talk about it and that we're open about it, how we're feeling, how it's impacting us, and then what we need to do to help ourselves during that time.
And sometimes it's having that conversation, isn't it, that can almost make you even closer then.
Yeah, because what they might hear. So, when we're looking at two people in a relationship, you're looking at what's going on for me. I'm tired, I've pain in my knee, I don't feel like it, I'm absolutely exhausted. But what's going on for the other person as well? And it's not that their needs are more important. It's about that sharing of needs. What are their needs? What are my needs? And how are we going to talk about that and create a space where we can talk about that?
Okay.
It sounds like everything is all rosy down in Limerick now, and
no, not at all.
It's like perfect. How we talk about all our needs and connection, but I do think
no one has the time to talk about their needs either. No. So it's about making space for the time. And I'm the same myself. Life is just so busy, and sometimes you'd be meeting yourself on the way back, even and. Sometimes my husband will say something to me, I'm like, I don't have the time. He's like, when will you have the time?
Yeah.
When can we actually talk? So it is important to find that time to have those discussions, because even I do talks around the country, and, I have my Viva La Vulva show, and I talk an awful lot about how menopause and perimenopause can impact women. And whenever men come to my talks, whether that be the corporate world or some poor fellas have ended up at Viva La Vulva unbeknownst to themselves, Jesus, they've come up afterwards and said, I just wish I'd known about this a few years ago. I could have been much more, I could have helped my wife or my partner or my sister so much more. And if women don't understand their bodies and what they're going through, how can they expect men? So I think it's that two-way conversation that's so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think maybe... I don't know, but I think maybe we're at a stage now where we're starting to talk about it more as women. So I think partners are a little bit maybe behind us in that, like, we're starting to talk about it now. And there's so much exposure for it, which is fantastic. But I suppose we have to, sometimes there can be a lot of assumptions that we make. I assume that you're going to know, or I presume that you're going to know that I have pain in my knee, or I don't feel like it, or I'm tired, or should look at all I'm doing. But a lot of the time when we're meeting ourselves, like you said, we're also kind of meeting them as we're coming in the door or going to training, or going over to our parents' house or picking up medication or whatever the case may be. So I think conversation, connection, and sometimes it's about moving away from the bedroom. And I don't mean that we're all going to move into the sitting room or the kitchen, but just moving away from the sex and the sex drive, and just connecting with our partners, connecting with ourselves, first of all, and then connecting with our partners. And yeah, I know I'm going to say creating space again, but creating space for it, I think it's so important.
How does CBT help with low mood? Because you did say that you help people with low mood. Is that low mood and depression, or is it low mood but it isn't
both.
Clinical depression? Okay.
Yeah, both. So CBT would be one of the most effective treatments. Again, I know I'm biased, but this is obviously backed up by the research for low mood. And again, we're using the model, the thoughts, the behaviours, the emotions, but also the physical symptoms of it, and that like motivational kind of system. And one of the techniques that we would use is behavioural activation. And that is exactly what it says on the tin, activating. So action comes before our emotion. So it's this downward spiral. When we have low mood, we maybe don't do anything or something. We then feel less motivated to do something. And then that causes that downward spiral. And behavior activation is the upward spiral. And that is where we don't feel like doing it. We absolutely do not feel like we have the energy, or we're not in the form to do it, but we do one thing. Small thing. It can be the 5-minute walk, or it doesn't have to be exercise. It can be whatever it is. Clearing out one shelf on the fridge. I'm just trying to think of like
Getting out of bed.
Getting out of bed. I'm getting dressed, having the shower, and I'm listing things now, but I'm meaning for it to be just one thing that we do. And when you do the one thing, you just have maybe a 1% increase in how you're feeling. So now I'm going to do one more thing. And we build on it then, that behavior activation, because a lot of the time we wait for the motivation to do something. I'll get out of bed, I'll shower, when I'm motivated to do it. But the motivation only comes from the action, from the doing. So it is in the activating the behaviours that we can start to feel better.
And then for someone that is so low that they just can't even think about getting out of bed or think about doing that thing, I suppose apart from those people should probably be on medication.
Absolutely.
And anyone with depression should definitely be talking to their doctor about it. But is there anything that they can do if they literally just can't get out of the bed, they just can't get motivated? What is that one thing that they should be able to do, or is? And
I would say there, obviously you've said it, Laura, they do need to speak to their GP.
Yeah.
It's really important. And for somebody who is feeling like they can't get out of bed, then, it's very important that they speak to their GP, and the GP might refer them to psychiatry instead. For CBT to be appropriate as a treatment, the person needs to be at a certain stage, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is in a crisis, we're not going to use CBT. If somebody is dealing with a significant trauma, we're not going to be dealing with CBT. So when somebody contacts me about CBT, I'll always do like a pre-assessment on the phone. We'll have a chat and see, do I think CBT is appropriate? And they may have contacted me because their GP has said, absolutely, go and contact a CBT therapist. But I might feel like, no, actually, I don't think CBT is appropriate here. So that's what I would say. If somebody has a depression where they're feeling like they're unable to get out of bed, then CBT might not be the right therapy at that time. Once they have sought other treatment, maybe from their GP, psychiatry, maybe working with a psychologist, there are other therapies as well. They may be prescribed like medication that might help. Then when they get to a stage where they're able to do some of the strategies,
Okay.
then that's more appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you spoke earlier about grounding techniques. Now, I know people that have had OCD and or do have OCD. They live with OCD. And they have done CBT to help them with OCD as well as medications in some cases. And they used to talk about doing these techniques. And I think it was that they were referring to grounding techniques where they were pinching certain areas in their hand that were pressure points or that. Mm-hmm. Is that part of CBT or is that a different therapy?
I haven't heard of that. As in pressure points.
Yeah,
like reflexology kind of acupuncture.
Like almost when they're thinking this thought that they would be thinking, this intrusive thought that they were thinking.
Yeah.
At a time when they're thinking that intrusive thought, that they press on a particular point on their thumb or their hand.
Yeah, so habit reversal.
Okay, this is.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, look at you.
I think this is
habit reversal.
That habit reversal. Yeah, I think that's what you might be referring to now. I'm not fully sure. But
habit reversal sounds like a cool thing to talk about. So.
Let's talk about it. So habit reversal is when maybe we have an intrusive thought, and generally after an intrusive thought, we might have a compulsion to do a specific behavior. So in OCD, and again, it's very individualized, and my little disclaimer part, this is for educational purposes.
Yeah.
But let's just say you have somebody who has to check all the switches. And I know now I'm picking something very,
I suppose that would be a very generalized way of thinking.
And I don't mean to be generalized, but that's the example that I'm using because I don't want to go into kind of specifics. So generalized, that is my compulsion that I want to do. So instead of doing that behavior, I will do a different, maybe that's what you're referring to. I'll replace it with a different habit, a different thing that I do instead of doing that. Because when we have an intrusive thought, the compulsion comes afterwards. But the urge to do the compulsion is like a wave and it eventually drops. It depends on the person what length of time that is for the wave to drop. So while the wave is rising and peaking and then it's dying away, we might put in a different behavior there that is less habit, a different one. So we might put in something, an elastic band or a paper clip or blue tack, or maybe that's what you're referring to, pressing on a different point.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to ask you that. You do deal with parents, you were saying,
yes,
to help parents help their children.
Yes.
So what does that look like?
So with younger children, it's actually referred to as parent-led CBT, which again is exactly what it says on the tin. We look at giving the parents strategies that they can use, and that can be transferred to other situations then as well, to help the parent to help their child. Because when children come to therapy, children aren't coming on their own. They are coming maybe to you on their own, but then they're going back to a particular environment. And a lot of the CBT work that is done is not done in the 50-minute or the hour session with the therapist. It's actually done outside of that. So I know you mentioned there about the neuroplasticity, and that's where we create new patterns of thoughts or new patterns of behavior, and we embed them then in the brain outside of the session. So we're practicing them, we're hearing the thought, we're changing it. So that's why I love parent-led CBT, because the parent is actually coming. Now, there is a particular true parent-led CBT where you actually don't work with the child at all, but I work kind of my own way where I will work with the child sometimes, I'll work with the parent. And it's just hearing different perspectives and giving parents tools that they can use in those situations at home when their child is, let's just say, feeling anxious. So hard to know what to do. When your child is feeling anxious, And one of the things that we would look at in parent-led CBT is actually reducing reassurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But you have to do this, and I'm laughing because I'm going to tell you a story of one of my parenting fails. You have to do this maybe like slowly, kind of withdraw it. And at certain times, if your child is maybe in a situation, you do have to give the reassurance, and that's absolutely fine. I remember being on a plane with one of my children.
How many do you have?
2.
Okay.
I won't mention which one, but I was on a plane with both of them, but a bit of turbulence. And my child turned to me and said, "Will we be okay?" And I was like, "I'm not going to give reassurance here now. I'm going to,
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. Don't judge me, Laura. This is a safe space,
I don't know.
it?" And I said, "What would make you think that we're not?" And she's like, "Oh, I just..." They just said... We won't be able to edit that, will we?
We can edit it out, of course.
And they said to me, "Oh, don't do CBT, just tell me we'll be fine." And I was like, "You're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. We're going to be absolutely fine." So reassurance actually can maintain anxiety in children, in all of us, because it prevents the independent assessment of a situation. So let's just say there is, I'm going to pick a really like simple example where a child is about to go on
a school tour.
Thank you, Laura. And they are worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
So not when they're just about to get onto the bus now. Maybe the night before they're saying, "Oh, I'm really worried about going and I don't want to go. And what if?" Lots of what if questions. What if this happens? What if this happens? And I would encourage the parent to say, "What would make you think it would happen?" Or have you ever been in a situation, let's just say they're worried about leaving the parent and going on the school tour. Have you ever been on a tour before? Maybe they haven't. Have you ever been somewhere with your friends before? And did that happen? And then what happens is the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, starts assessing it. And by asking the questions, the child is going, "No, I was fine. Oh no, that was okay." So because when we get reassurance, it's like being told to calm down. Have you ever calmed down when somebody told you to calm down? It's very rare,
really
isn't it?
me.
Yeah, it really irritates me too. I think it irritates everybody because there's that
And
meme.
I'd like to make a point, actually. When I'm being told to calm down, I'm not uncalm, right?
Of course.
I fucking want to. There's only one person tells me to calm down. Actually, the kids have started to tell me to calm down sometimes, and it's like a red rag to a bull.
Yes.
I'm like, I am not uncalm, but you are making me uncalm now. You're making me want to lose the will to live.
Must not tell you to calm down.
Yeah, no, it is. I actually find the term calm down quite patronising.
Yes. Yeah. But never in the history of anyone being told to calm down has anyone ever calmed down. It doesn't work. It might work for 5 seconds. So when we give reassurance to kids, but the anxiety actually maintains. It keeps going. It actually reinforces it. And that's not to say we're doing anything wrong as parents, or that I'm below in Limerick just doing daisy chains and singing Kumbaya and everything is perfect in my house. Of course not. But if we can reduce some of that reassurance, it's really helpful for children.
Now, you did say, though, don't say it to them when they're just getting on the bus.
Oh,
so
yes,
when they're getting
absolutely.
on the bus, just say,
tell them whatever. This plane is fine.
Yeah.
Get on the bus.
Okay, so in the acute situation, you reassure them. But if it's a chronic...
Yes, over time, we want to reduce some of that. So I might work with a parent and say, "How many times do you give reassurance a week?" And they might do a little diary and a little tick. I had to give it 15 times today or 10 times. So we're just taking that support away very slowly. We're not going from reassuring them all the time to, "No, mom or dad is never reassuring you ever again." We're just reducing it.
And what's causing this anxiety in kids? Young kids. What's causing the anxiety?
There's so many things, Laura.
It seems worse now than when we were younger, or is it just it wasn't talked about when we were younger?
I think there are huge levels of anxiety now. I think they're bigger now. But as an anxious child, I don't know, because I was the anxious child.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, well, I felt anxious as a child. maybe we didn't talk about it, and maybe everybody else, I don't know if everybody else in my class was anxious as well, or were we just not talking about it? Did I know the word anxiety when I was younger? I doubt it.
Was it exhausting though, as a kid, being anxious?
Yeah, absolutely exhausting. When I first remember being anxious, I was in second class in school, and like now I can look back as an adult and go, oh, I know what that was. And it was something like, you know, my uncle had passed away. It was my first experience of death in the family, and I wouldn't let my mother leave the classroom door in the mornings. You know, I had to, like, obviously now I'm looking back as an adult or as a therapist going, oh, separation anxiety. I was worried something would happen to her. And that, continued right throughout primary school, secondary school, really anxious. Had a really challenging time in 5th and 6th year, I would say. Yeah, really bad experience in 5th and 6th year.
Is that due to bullying?
Yeah.
Fucking knew it.
Yeah.
Little bitches.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, right, because in my confession box, in my stories on Instagram that I do every Sunday, I get an awful lot of mums or dads maybe, but generally mums messaging going, I just can't cope with the way my daughter's being treated in school, or my daughter does not want to go to school. She's refusing to go to school because of bullying. And, you know, or she was very good friends with one girl and now there's 3 or 4 of them now, and they're excluding her, and she's not in Snapchat groups. They've set up other ones, or they've removed her. Now, so I'm a mother of 3 boys, and I do know that boys can be mean to each other as well. But I think that, I suppose, society would depict that girls can be much more vicious in a kind of an underlying way, maybe. Now, because I don't have girls, I don't know, and because I wouldn't like to say anything out of turn, but it does seem that girls can be a little bit meaner, whereas boys might just kick the shit out of each other for the crack, or like slag each other, and then it's kind of maybe forgotten about, or they don't overthink it. But I do get a lot of women messaging me and saying their little girl is traumatized with the way she's been treated. And then those parents have maybe gone to the other girl's parents, and the other girl's parents has not been receptive to that.
I think the teenage years are so challenging anyway. And there's so much going on for both girls and boys during the teenage years. But when you throw in exclusion and bullying and what goes on, and maybe I shouldn't just focus on the teenage years, but definitely pre-adolescent to right through, I just think it is just, I actually get a bit emotional about it. It's so sad. Now, I obviously have my own, you know, and my experience of exclusion and bullying, I wouldn't say that it was absolutely, again, I'm scaling it now and I shouldn't, what am I comparing it to? But it wasn't horrendous. But I would sit in the car and have my lunch with my mother, would drive in during the day. And when I look back now, and it's something that my mother, like, I have 2 wonderful parents, can I just say?
Yeah.
But she would often say, I should have done more about that. A different time as well, absolutely different time. And she did speak to the school about it, and, you know, it wasn't kind of received. But let me tell you, as a parent now, like, I'm a huge advocate for children, for my own children. It doesn't mean that I think that they are without fault at all. But what you hear and what you see, and without going into any experience with clients or anything like that, but just even talking to other parents, as a parent, being a parent myself, I think it's not to minimise anything that happened in the 80s and 90s, but you have so many different layers to it now.
Well, I think it's the whole phone thing now.
Yeah.
And you know, in school, if you had a fight with a friend or something like that, or you were excluded, you could go home and live your life. And maybe you weren't invited to a party and that felt like shit. But there wasn't other groups set up within your social circle, I suppose, that everyone was on that you weren't part of. So it's easy to exclude them now.
Yeah, the layers now are unreal. Like, the level of exclusion that happens maybe at school, but also then online. yeah, it's very, very challenging.
Is there anything that parents can do? So just say, for instance, we are talking to women now and men who have children, whether they be boys or girls, who are being ostracised, who are miserable as a result of it, and who don't want to go to school, or who are crying, or who have been ostracised, or their friend group are leaving them out. What can the parents do to help their child?
There's a few different levels to this now, okay? The first thing we do, and when I say this to parents, are like, please give me something more than that. You have to listen first. You have to be the person that sounds, I shouldn't say you have to, because that sounds like pressure on parents, but be the person they can talk to. Make sure they have a space that they can go to where they talk about how they're feeling, where when they get into the car and they say, oh my God, my day. They need that space. It is so important. And it's actually, it might sound so simple. Like, yeah, of course I listen to my kids, but really listen to them when they talk about their experience. And the second part is really believe them. You know, the way sometimes, I'm going to be really honest here, it can be a little bit inconvenient. Now, I'm not saying bullying or my child's, you know, whatever they're experiencing is inconvenient. But when they get into the car and they've missed the goal, or somebody didn't pass to them, or something happened at school and you're like, oh, I've had a really bad day here.
I know.
Please don't add to it. And I'm just being honest about that, okay?
Of course, yeah.
So when they get into the car and they've had that day, listen when they're ready to talk about it. And you might think, you know, again, that's really simple, and is that going to be effective? One of the most effective things we can do when our child is being bullied is that listening piece, because they feel like their story is being heard. That's really important. Then the next thing is being curious rather than being reactive. Oh, when they get into the car and they say what they're saying, and you're like, wait,
Yeah.
I'll be at that gate in the morning. And it's about being curious. So they might say to you, oh, this person did this. And you're like, you know what you do now?
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Because we have an adult brain. So we've gone through all of our development with our brain. We can still rewire and retrain and reframe. But we have to remember that our children, whether they are teenagers or in primary school, they don't have that brain development yet. So what they really need is for us to listen to them and be curious. And we might say, do you know what you do? Don't talk to that person now again. That's not a friend. And it's not about that, because they might get into the car the next day and be like, oh, I'm best friends with them again.
Yeah.
So being curious rather than being reactive. And then I would often have conversations with people around moving schools.
That seems very drastic.
Yeah, but there are situations where sometimes you have to weigh up all of the, and I'm not saying if your child is being bullied, everybody has to whip them out of school the next day. Sorry, I should say, after being curious, not reactive, it's really important to always inform the school. Always talk to the school.
But you know the way the kids don't, sometimes they don't want you to inform the school because they don't want the school then talking to the alleged bullies and then making it worse.
Yeah, it depends on the scale.
Okay.
But I think if there is a way of speaking to the school where you can maintain that trust with your child, so you're not going behind their back, but you're maintaining that trust. But I do think it's important that our children know as well that, you know, not that we're patronising them or that we know better, but that we do have an adult brain, and sometimes there are things that we have to talk to the school about. And it's really important that the school are aware, and we can be very clear with the school that we don't want any action taken, or, you know, that we just want them to know so that they can keep an eye. And schools have anti-bullying policies. It's very important that those are followed. Parents have access to them. And yeah, I feel really, I suppose, passionate about advocating for children who are being excluded, we have to support them as parents, absolutely. And we have to help them maybe find a solution or find different ways of meeting other friends and doing things maybe extracurricular that they enjoy as well. But I think that's really important.
Is there also an argument for, look, we all go through some form of this in our lives, whether it be when we're children or adults, and sometimes we need to tell our kids to toughen up? Big deep breath from you.
Yeah, big deep breath. Because how do you toughen up?
What I mean is, there's always going to be someone that says something mean to you, or there's always going to be a group of cows or cowboys who you don't get on with, or one of them doesn't like you and he's the leader of the group and the rest follow him. And as humans, we will encounter people that don't like us or that we don't like. So where is the line drawn where it's actually, my child has been really severely impacted by this, versus my child is probably maybe a bit sensitive and just needs to find new friends? It can be difficult for parents to navigate that.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean if your child comes home and says they're being bullied, you go, oh, toughen up, you big pussy. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
What I do mean is we're going to, life isn't a bed of roses. We were not put on this earth to be happy and to get on with everyone. We were put on this earth, I suppose, to survive, first of all, to find our little tribe.
Yeah.
And if our child goes through their childhood and teenage years thinking that everyone should get on and that mommy's going to always be there to, back me up. Well, mummies should always be there to back them up. But if they think that they have to get on with everyone, they're going to get a real rude awakening when they go into the working world. Yep. So I suppose it's about making them resilient for adulthood, but while also having that compassion for them.
Absolutely. So the key component in research for resilience is quality of our relationships. So that's what we've hit with number one, with that listening part and connecting with them.
Okay.
The being curious is when we don't go in with that's not a friend. I wouldn't like that in a friend of mine. It's when we're curious about, how did that make you feel? Is that something you'd like in a friend? So the child is now independently assessing that situation, going, actually, no, she's a bitch. I actually don't want to be friends with her. Now, they might be friends again the next day, but we're asking those questions in a way where we're being curious. We're not telling them what to do. And I absolutely think that there are, maybe not in the moment, but learning opportunities afterwards. So it might be a year down the line when they haven't been friends with that person again, and we can say, oh, remember, we might see them or something and we might say, oh, remember? And who are your friends now? Or, what I'm saying, like there's a learning opportunity, but it's in our conversations, Laura, like it's in how we talk to them about these situations. Do I think we have to rush in very quickly when things happen? It depends on the scale of things. Like if it's something, if it's something physical, or if it's something that's going to cause but strong emotional distress in a child, then yes, absolutely, school need to be informed of it. And as somebody who was a teacher, I would want to know, like you'd want to know. So do we need to go in because, and look, I'm using a scale here, it depends on the child, but if your child is coming home and somebody is saying something to them and they do it like as a once off, they call them, a name or whatever, then there's criteria for what bullying is. Yeah. And I think that's important too.
Yeah, and there's normal childhood behaviours as well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Where people just gang up on people and kick them in the arse and then they're okay the next day.
Yeah.
But I suppose it was just that whole piece about, sometimes are we too aware of our feelings these days?
Yes, so we were talking about anxiety before and anxiety now. Yeah, so there is definitely a trend towards talking about feelings now.
Like that triggered me.
Yes.
I'm almost like, Jesus.
So there are words that we use. Coleman Noctor wrote a great piece on this about the words that we use in our kind of vernacular now that are words that are maybe from the therapeutic space. So I feel triggered. I think that there is a fear amongst parents, maybe. I'm generalising now, but there can be a fear that I was anxious as a child. Was I listened to? Now, I was listened to, but, you know, some parents might be thinking, well, I really want to listen to my child and it's very important. And I saw this thing where you've to listen and let them talk about their feelings all the time. But it's okay for us to say, okay, you know what? We've talked about that now. You've told me how you felt. And now a really good thing would be if we did something fun, or we, you know.
What you were going to say. I was actually going to say something. A really good thing would be if you'd fuck off.
Mom's had enough today.
Leave me alone.
No. No, I might be thinking it. I might be thinking it in my head, Laura, but I'm not saying it. We're all thinking it in our head sometimes, in a really nice way, obviously.
Okay, no, that's lovely. I just wanted to touch on that, but that was the favorite.
Yeah, you went to a completely different place there.
Yeah, piss off. Okay, so look, I know you have to get to an Iron Maiden concert, Imago.
Don't
so
judge
I'm
me.
going to.
It's not mine.
It's lovely. You're up in Dublin to an Iron Maiden concert with your husband. How fun is that? It's great.
Lovely.
Where can people find you?
So my website is Full Circle CBT. You can also find me on Instagram at Full Circle CBT.
And you do mainly online, or?
It's all online, yeah. So my practice is online. So when I started as a therapist, I worked actually in the same practice that I went to.
Okay.
So when I would tell people that I sat in the chair, I literally sat in the chair. And then at the start of the pandemic, I set up my own practice online. And I've never had to come offline. To be honest, I've never had to, go in person because I'm online and it suits me and suits my clients.
And people are so used to online now as well.
Yeah.
They like it, not having to travel to sessions, I'm sure. What piece of advice would you give young people today?
I don't know if I'm changing my mind now, but no, I think it's to learn how to like yourself and not shrink to fit in, even though you might feel you have to sometimes. And I think when you learn to like yourself, you can be yourself then. And it's not that kind of fluffy, be your own best friend. It's actually like all the parts of you, the messy parts, the parts that show up at times that annoy you, and the parts you love about yourself as well. And I think when you like yourself and learn how to like yourself, you can be you. And you're less likely to be in relationships or friendships or maybe work environments where you feel like things don't fit. You'll seek places where you want to, I suppose, be, because you like how you feel in those places.
And what is the meaning of life?
Oh, to be real, Laura. Just makes life so much easier to just be authentic, be yourself. And I think that's what it's all about.
Nicola Culloty, thanks so much. What a pleasure.
Thank you.